Hi, I'm Ray Butts from Rocky Mountain ATV MC, and today we're going to talk about how to qualify for Loretta Lynn's. All right, so you race motocross, or you have a family member that races motocross, you're getting faster, you've heard about Loretta Lynn's, but you have a lot of questions. Let's talk about how to get yourself ready and get to the national championship. To start off with, let's talk about age. There's a couple different breakups within Loretta Lynn's. There's amateur classes, and youth classes. So within the youth classes, it can include everyone from little kids on 50cc motorcycles, shaft drive, oil inject, the special limited class is what they call it, all the way up to kids riding 125cc two-strokes. Now, these youth classes, if you're looking at age, and let's say it's your child that is going to qualify for Loretta's, their age requirements are based upon their age on January 1 of that year. When you move into the amateur classes, which are all of the older kids, it can be like Schoolboy 2, which can be 125, but it's also a 254 stroke. When you start getting into the 254 strokes or the age groups like the vet classes, that's when the age requirements get a little bit muddy. I would suggest going to the website at mxsports.com, pull up the supplemental rules. You can look down through the different classes and it will clarify which your age needs to be on which dates, because the amateur classes get a lot more complicated. Youth is easy. Amateur, you got to pay attention to a few things. Some of the rules are based upon not allowing youth kids to get on too big of bikes too early. They're very sensitive about that we're not allowing 12, 13-year-old kids to race 254 strokes. So just pay attention, go on the website, check it out at mxsports.com. So next, let's look at machine sizes. A lot of times the size of the machine can also dictate the age of the rider. So my son has been to Loretta's a few times, and each year he's slowly progressed. We started on a 50, he's raced 65s, he's raced 85s. Now we're looking at super mini and possibly even a 125 BC class. Now what does all that mean? When you go into these CC sizes, it will have specific age groups within each one. So when he was on 50 cc's, there's like a 4 to 6 class, and then there's also a 7-8-year-old class. So you got to pay attention to the age as well as the CC. When you're looking at, you get into the older classes and the open classes like the amateur level, there's a broader age group within those classes. But once again, just go to the rules, check it out, and you'll be able to see if there's any restrictions on age. Another thing to consider when you're going to these races, this is another pitfall for anybody that's new going to Loretta's. Pay attention to the class. If it says limited or special limited, these classes you have to be really careful with your bike. Limited classes are basically a stock class. There's a few things that you can modify that's like for creature comforts, like you can put different handlebars, you can play with your seat, you can play with your foot pegs, but when you start changing engine components, you can get yourself into trouble. So pay attention to the rules. You can't put pipes, you can't port or polish the engine, you can't blueprint the engine. You can put things like top triple clamps, but not the bottom triple clamp. So just be cautious of those pitfalls, that you don't show up to your area or regional qualifier to try out for a limited class when all of a sudden the person next to you realizes you have a aftermarket exhaust on your bike and you qualify and they protest your spot and you get DQ'd. So limited class, just pay attention to it. It's a great way to compete, but there are certain rules and restrictions you have to pay attention to. Then there's the open classes. These open classes, there's a lot fewer rules as far as modifications. You can run the aftermarket exhaust, you can port and polish the engine, you can put the ceramic bearings and just a plethora of things to the engine. Typically in an open class, the main restriction is you can't exceed the cc's, the cubic centimeters that's allowed for that class. One more thing to be cautious with when you're going to these qualifiers, typically the spring isn't an issue, but by the time you go to the nationals, a lot of times these manufacturers have released the next year's model before you get to Loretta's. Be cautious. If you're racing in 18, this year's 2018, if your manufacturer has released a 2019 bike that you've purchased before the national championship, if you race that 19 model, you once again are opening yourself up to be DQ'd because a 19 model bike is not allowed in the 2018 race. So once again, just one more thing to be cautious about when you're prepping for Loretta's. Okay, so you've got your rider, you know their age, you've got your bike ready, you know the class you're gonna go contend. Now what? Let's look at the different qualifiers. The qualifiers are set up like a huge funnel. There are up to 64 area qualifiers that lead to 8 regionals that then lead to the national championship. The way that works, there are 8 regions and they allow up to 8 area qualifiers in each of those regions. Now, are there always going to be 8 area qualifiers for each region? No. I believe this year there's 53 area qualifiers to give everybody a chance to make it to a regional. All right, so what you need to do, once again, go to the website, check out the map of where everything's laid out, and then you have to strategize on where you want to go to your region, which will then show you which areas will qualify you for that regional race. Now, we're in Utah, and the closest regionals to us are all on the West Coast. We have a Northwest, a Midwest, and a Southwest. In our area, the area around here, I have an area qualifier for each of those races. So what we'll do is we'll strategize and say, okay, let's qualify for these regions, and these are the areas that will qualify you for that specific region. Now, what you got to be careful with is you can go to an area qualifier for the Northwest. It does not allow you to go to the Southwest. You have to have the specific area that leads to that specific region. So pay attention, it's on the website. There's a real nice breakdown showing all the regions and all the areas that qualify you for that region. All right, now a question you might have is, why should I go to multiple area qualifiers or multiple regional qualifiers? The main reason most people qualify for more than one regional is anyone can have a bad day, right? So if you limit yourself to one area and one region, if you make it to that regional and you go out there and just have a first corner tip over, your weekend's done, your season is done, and you're not making it to the national championship. So most riders, even the best riders out there, will qualify for a second safety region so that if they have a bad day at the first regional, they have a backup. They can go the next weekend or 2 weeks later and still have a shot at the national championship. All right, so you've chosen your area, you've chosen your region, you've got your backup area and region. Now, what do you do at qualifying? Well, when you go to these areas and regionals, you typically have the classes figured out. Most people have a couple classes that make sense for their bike size. But there are times that you may have a rider that rides a couple bikes. So maybe they're riding 65s and 85s. You can contend up to 4 classes at an area and up to 4 classes at a regional. At the area, it's 4 classes per day. Some areas you go to are large enough that they're split into 2 days, so you could do 4 one day, 4 the next day. But most people are going to contend a couple classes and try for that at the national. Now, once you reach the national, let's say you contend your 4 at your area, you qualify for 4 at your region. When you go to sign up for nationals, you can only sign up for 2 classes maximum. The only exception to this are the 50cc riders, and they're only allowed to sign up for 1 class at the national. Now, how many areas and regionals can you qualify for? As many as you want to drive to, or as many as you can talk your parents into driving you to. So it's really unlimited. Typically what the limitation is just geographical distance. So like I said, our strategy is we'll qualify for all the West Coast regions, and then we'll keep going to regionals until we've maxed out the number of classes we can attend at the national. So But there's no limitation. If you want to drive to all of them, you can drive to all of them. It's just once you get to the national, you can only qualify for 2 classes. That's the big thing to remember. So just a few things to remember. If you qualify in your area for the region, you go race the area, you qualify for the regional, you have to go to the regional that area is in. Next is don't forget to register for that regional. If you are in a qualifying position out of your area, make sure you register online for that regional, because you could potentially get bumped by someone else that registered. Each of the regionals have the potential to have more than a full gate in any given class. So make sure, don't take a chance. If you're going to go race that regional, make sure that you're registering for it. Now, the same goes at the regional level. If you hit a qualifying position in your regional and you have qualified for the national championship, make sure that when registration opens, you're registering for that location on the gate at Loretta Lynn's. You don't want to take a chance and not register, because they want a full gate there. And if you don't register, they assume you're not coming and they will fill it with one of the alternates. Now, what is an alternate? In the area level, if you race the area and you finished at least 1 lap, you can then register as a alternate at the region. What that means is if they don't fill the gate, you can come and race that regional as an alternate and still try and qualify for the national. So the same goes regional level to the national. Let's say they're taking the top 4. On the West Coast, they take the top 4 kids out of each of the regions. If you're number 5, you can register as an alternate at the national championship. And if for whatever reason they don't have a full gate, you have the opportunity, you have the chance of filling that gate. Also, if for whatever reason you race multiple regions and you qualify in both regions for the exact same class, what will happen is they will determine one of those regions as your home region, and then they will drop you off the roster of the other region. What this means is, even though you qualified twice, you're still only qualified for 1 class. So when you go to Loretta's, you will only have 1 gate. They will push the gate onto another alternate that you qualified in the 2nd region. All right, so you have your rider, you have your class, you've picked your area, you've got your regional, you've figured out all your funnel and everything. Now it's schedule. When does all this happen? Well, typically the first areas start in mid-February and they'll run all the way through mid-May. That gives all spring for opportunities to qualify for these different areas to lead you into their specific regional. Once again, remember, whatever area you qualify at, it has a specific region that you have to go to contend for a spot at the national. The regionals typically start the last week in May. So that'll be the first weekend of regional racing. And most weekends from then through the end of June will have 1 to 2 races every weekend to qualify for the national. So plan your schedule accordingly. When you get your areas done, just know that the end of May through mid-June, you're going to be racing your regionals. Once you're done with regionals and you've qualified, you have a month off. The national championship typically starts about the 1st of August and runs that first week of August. All right, so we've given you all kinds of information on how to qualify for Loretta Lynn's. I know that it can be very confusing. I remember the first year that we qualified, it seemed really confusing, but once you've been through the process, it all starts making sense and clicking together. Anyways, if you have any further questions or comments, please put them in the comments below on this video. You can always check out mxsports.com, click on the Loretta Lynn shield. There's a header bar that has the rules and supplemental rules and everything about the bikes and everything about the races that you could ever think of. But we're glad to help too. So good luck, everybody, and we hope to see you at Loretta Lynn's.